Welcome to Mitts Off, episode 15. We have a very special episode for you today. We are live on location at the Sports Interaction Studios in downtown Toronto. I am thrilled to be joined by my old summer training partner, Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman, a very timely guest. Erik Gudbranson is going to be joining us. We'll see what he's been up to the last week or so here and talk about a couple other things throughout his illustrious NHL career. Mitts Off is powered by Sports Interaction, our exclusive betting partner, and your homegrown sportsbook. Download the app to get started. 19 plus, and as always, please play responsibly. Before we get going here, I'd love to weigh in on some of the current events that have been happening in the NHL in regards to checking from behind and seeing some very vicious and dangerous hits close to the boards. You know, I played 11 years of professional hockey, and I took a lot of pride over that time in never having a suspension to my name. I always tried to be very aware and cognizant of what I was doing when I was being physical within my role. Listen, there's a time and a place for big hits, and there was nobody that loved being F1 for first forechecker on the forecheck more than me. Little soft chip in, you know what defenseman you're going after. I was trying to make contact and make a hit, but there's a time and a place, and most of the time it's stick on puck, because at the end of the day, your job as a forward or a forechecker is to win the puck battle, get possession. Your job isn't necessarily to blow the guy up behind the net. And we've kind of seen this evolve. I think I've seen some younger players earlier in the year. Luke Hughes is a name that comes to mind. I've seen him been hit pretty hard a couple times now, and I was kind of on those guys to be engaging and know who's coming and be aware of who's on the ice and, you know, maybe make some contact first, but at least a shoulder check, looking through the glass, and not just be totally oblivious to a forechecker coming in on you. Going back for the puck as a defenseman is probably maybe the hardest thing to do in hockey, especially in today's game. Everybody's so big, so strong, and so fast. You really have to be aware. But when it becomes a problem is when it's veteran guys. And that's when I really started noticing it, was guys like Jonas Brodin, Chris Tanev, Erik Gudbranson getting hit. These are veteran guys that know how to get back pucks and know how to go back for pucks and have been doing it for almost a decade, some of these guys. And what we're seeing is players not adjusting to the D turning, right? We're seeing players finish through the numbers, as opposed to maybe thinking he's going to keep steering and follow it that way. But we're seeing players deliberately finish through the numbers. And to be honest, it makes me sick to my stomach. There is no place in the game for any sort of boarding 3 or 4 feet from the boards when you are seeing numbers. And a hit on Erik Gudbranson, for example, is, I think, one of the most disrespectful things I've seen in hockey. And talk about policing the game. I did it as an enforcer for many, many years. You can't really police that anymore. So guys can kind of run wild and do whatever they want. I don't think this is an epidemic yet. I don't think it's a major problem, but it is a trend. And it's a trend that's going in the absolute wrong direction. I think players have to be a little more aware on both sides of the puck, on the offensive and the defensive side. But I think guys have to be a little more respectful too, because with all we know about head injuries and all we're trying to do with player safety, guys have no right hitting players like that in vulnerable spots. So it's kind of what I think about it. I took a lot of pride, like I said, over 11 years of never having a suspension and trying to play the game the right way, play tough, play hard, play physical, but really, really flirt that line. And here we are, episode 15, Mitts Off, joined by my good buddy, current Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman, Erik Gudbranson. What's up,
buddy? How are you?
It's
been way too long.
So how was your week? What have you been up to? What have you been up to?
Yeah.
No, seriously, how are you feeling?
No, good.
Honestly, man, you're a little roughed up, a little banged up, body a little hurting, but you feel good?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, play hockey, man. The best you feel playing hockey is like right before you step on the ice for training camp, day one training camp. It's all downhill from there, and you're just managing it. So.
I feel that too, man.
Yeah.
The Oilers just had a 5-day break, and I got into this conversation with someone because they said they were so hot, and they said this is the worst thing that can happen to them. I go, buddy, you're going to give NHL players a 5-day break in the middle of the season. That's the best thing that can happen to a team. Yeah. Everyone's like hurting with something, battling something.
100%.
Let's just jump into it, man. Honestly, when I saw you get hit the other day, I was sick to my freaking stomach. There was 3 or 4 over the last couple weeks, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing, I don't think it's a problem yet, I'd say, but it's definitely trend.
Mm-hmm.
That one was predatory. Can you kind of walk me through it from you going back, getting the puck?
Yeah. I mean, the puck was kind of like somehow got chipped in, was stuck right behind the net. And I really just went back, checked my shoulder, kind of like leaned in on my outside edge, knowing I'm going to take some contact. And, saw the guy there and eventually ended up face planting on the wall, and it just happened so fast. Like, it was one of those ones that, I had no time to react to it. It was just like, boom, got hit, figured out I was okay. And then, obviously what happened afterwards happened.
So it's probably the hardest, if not one of the hardest skills in hockey is going back to get pucks as a D-man, right?
Yeah.
Especially everybody's so big, so strong, so fast these days. You have a couple checks, right? You'll shoulder check, maybe glass look, but you're not fully like expecting to take that hit there, I'd say.
No, that one, no. I've gone back for a million pucks now, and you're probably taking contact. And actually nowadays it's a little bit different. Like back when, I was younger 10 years ago, like that F1 was coming in and it was body every single time, and generally bigger boys. Now it's about creating that turnover and, taking the hit plus getting the puck. Or some guys come in, depending on what team you're playing, some guys are trying to, fake the hit and pick a pass that you're trying to make. So it's a little bit lighter that way, but I just didn't expect that hit. You expect to take contact, but that came in really hard and kind of toppled me over, hit the inside of my shoulder, just in the worst spot, and ended up going hard into the wall.
I mean, I played 11 years, man. No suspensions, and I used to love being F1, right?
Yeah.
Little soft chip in, the D's back there. I'm going to put him through the glass, but it really changed throughout my career to the point where, I mean, the goal is to get the puck, right? The goal is to actually win a puck battle, and you don't have to drive them through every time. It's stick on puck, force a turnover. I look at guys like Zach Hyman, who's outstanding at it, little stick lift getting in there. But I see a lot of younger players these days. Luke Hughes is one that comes to mind for me, where maybe they're not expecting it as much, but then I've seen some veteran guys get hit these days too. Do you see this as being more of a trend or a problem happening more and more with guys? Or is it a combination of, guys have to be more engaging with forecheckers coming in, be more aware on the ice?
Yeah, like generally, like based on my experiences, year 13 for me now, I know to find the guy and kind of try and ride him into the wall. That was a skill that I got when I was a lot younger. Otherwise, you were getting popped, and that was going to hurt. And in terms of longevity, that's just not how you do it, right?
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit. I don't know. Is it the correlation between Hockey Canada stopping hitting until Bantam? Like, are those kids now playing?
It's got
in the NHL.
They're close.
Or
you don't
like
start
junior
till
area.
14 now. It's getting close. Yeah, it'd be like the 18s. Yeah, it'd be some of the younger guys.
So I don't know if that's a direct correlation, but I mean, there's definitely less contact in the NHL nowadays than 10, 15 years ago. Definitely 20 years ago. So maybe there's a little bit of a correlation like that. You kind of play that cat and mouse game a little bit. Like, even you look at my hit, like I really don't expect him to hit me there. So I'm sort of in a bad spot. You know what I mean? And I put myself there. He didn't guide me there. Like I am in a bad spot trying to make a play on the puck and I get hit. So, maybe there's I don't want to say lack of awareness, but that's just how the game's played nowadays.
Had you been jarring with him like during the game leading up to that?
Not really. I don't really like talking too much on the ice, to be honest with you. I've never really been one to chirp that much, but I caught him hard a couple times earlier in the game, and it's just the game of hockey sometimes.
I mean, he knows what he's doing there. I think that's the point for me, is that There's a second where he has a calculated decision that he can make and doesn't let up, sees the numbers and follows through with it. When you go down, you said earlier, like, I realized I was okay. And then do you just see red? Do you just like...
Yeah, like, I don't, whatever's in between my ears kind of turns off for a minute. And yeah, I don't, there's no real thought process at that point. It's just like, you're just so mad.
So you obviously watched the hit back. What did you think about it?
Yeah, it was a bad hit for sure.
Brutal.
And I kind of walk in a fine line. Like, I don't want to sound melodramatic by any stretch of the imagination, but like, that's as, I think personally over the years, like 31 now, I've been playing hockey for a long time. Like, that's the most dangerous hit in hockey. Like that, about, maybe a couple hundredths of a second before that, I'm 3 feet back and I bend my neck forwards, and then I'm in real deep shit. I happen to be close enough to the wall where it really wasn't that bad. But I think that's a very dangerous hit that should never be in hockey. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something about your kids being in the stands watching it, right? Like, you got kids watching these plays and your own too. And it's like, we're just seeing your dad down on the ground or whatever. Yeah. It's scary to think about, man.
Yeah, it was. It was. And it was, it's a 1 o'clock game. Kids are fired up to come to the game and stuff like that. So yeah, hockey's not a safe workplace either. It really isn't. And it's so much fun, and you end up putting that in the back of your mind so often. Like, just the other day, I'm pretty sure Boone Jenner didn't expect his night to end and his job being wired shut. Like, it just happens, you know what I mean? Stuff like that happens, and it is what it is. But it's a beautiful game. It can bite you sometimes, but hands down, it's the most fun game on the face of the earth.
It brought me back to 2016, 2015. Dang, I don't even know the year. I was playing for Edmonton. We're playing the Florida Panthers. And Matt Hendricks had a very similar hit where he drove Aaron Ekblad in Edmonton. That was further away from the boards too.
Oh yeah.
And dude, I was on Hendo's line and I just remember going, oh, this is not good. No. First for Ekblad, second for Hendo. I was like, he's getting the book thrown at him. He didn't fight that game. He didn't have to fight that game because he got he's at Logan Shaw, I think, jumped him. Yeah, just like a very quick one. But he gets tossed. 3-game sussy, and then we go to Florida. His first game back is against you guys. Mm-hmm. So a couple questions about it. Obviously, brutal hit too. Yeah. Right? Like, that was dangerous. I love Hendo. He plays that line very fine, but you're the one that ends up scrapping him. Yeah. So there's a couple things about this. Obviously, there's less policing of the game, I think we see these days. Mm-hmm. I remember going into it, Hendo was like, I don't know who I'm going to get, right? Thornton was on your team. Mm-hmm. I've never asked you this or like found that out. How did you guys determine that? Were you and Thordy like, who's getting them? Was Thordy like, you got this? Or
yeah, I mean,
tell me.
may or may not have been a conversation about that.
I remember Hendo was like, who am I going to go here? Who do I have to go here?
I know. And respect to him, like, knowing that it's coming and he manned up. He did his job. It's I think that's one of the parts about hockey that's so great is like being in that position and having to man up to something like that. You know what I mean? You get called out and stepping up to the plate. Like, I think that's part of the beautiful part of our game. I really do. So, and he did his job. He like dropped halfway through that, and I threw my back out. I threw one right over his. I threw one right over his head. You had the lawnmower going. You were all the way back. I didn't actually finish the game. I went and sat in the box, came back, and I went straight to the back. My back is torched. So
every muscle, every oblique. Well, Darren was asking. Darren goes this morning. My producer, he said, so why didn't Erik have to fight you after? I said, because it's done after that. Yeah. Right. He steps up. He does his job. You know what? You beat the wheels off him, quite honestly, but he mans up, and like, that's the end of the situation. That's it to me, right? That's it. Problem solved. I'm sure Ekblad's pretty thankful for you to step in there and do your job, and I don't know, you just see so much less of that in the game today. Yeah, right? I know. It's just different, man. The individuals that are coming in, they're great kids and they're so talented. It's just different. They came up with something. I don't want to say completely foreign, but the NHL that they grew up watching versus what we
growing up watching was like I'll never forget the Battle of Ontario, kind of my age. It was
buddy.
Who knows what's happening tonight, but I'm watching it. Like
Darcy Tucker running around, Chris Neal.
Like something's gonna happen tonight. I don't know when, I don't know what, but like I know for a fact I'm gonna enjoy this hockey game. Like you watched it, and I was a Habs fan. So
Habs?
like I was a Habs fan growing up, so I knew something.
Even though you grew up in Ottawa?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I grew up here in the city, so both of those, I tell people too, like both of those teams, you're supposed to be like anti-Habs. I hated the Sens. For me, it was the Sens. And I was like marking on the calendar all those Battle of Ontarios. But going back to that, I was going to ask you, like, let's say a guy, Jared Boll. Like, I'm going to say, you know, if Jared Boll's in your lineup, does Nick Cousins make that hit on you? To be honest, I still think he does. Like, I just think players have way less... I don't know. They take whatever shots they want now because the instigator protects them. They don't necessarily have to stick up for themselves. Do you think that if there's maybe 2 or 3 heavier guys on the team that play happens?
Potentially. I mean, there was bad stuff that happened a while ago too. You know what I mean? And probably not, to be honest with you. I think sometimes that's just the way the game of hockey is. That's why you have NHL player safety. That's why you have refs. That's why you have, you know, guys who are in our position. And that's just the game of hockey. Sometimes it's the way she goes.
Let's take her back to the beginning, buddy. I always love asking guys about their drafts. We were just thinking you, unfortunately, aren't the highest draft pick we've had so far. Number 3. Close second, Sam Reinhart, second overall. Tell me about your draft, because this was like the big Tyler versus Taylor, but you were the first D taken at 3.
Yeah. Did
you know what was happening? Did you know it was going to be Florida? Like, was this a pretty much foregone guarantee, or were you like, I might go from here to here?
So long story short, this kind of started at the combine with me. My first combine meeting was with Florida.
Were you an animal back then like you are now?
I was a lot skinnier. Like my first junior game, like when I played you, I was like, first of all, who's this mutant across the ice from me?
Was this K-Rock Center or Kingston Memorial?
No, this is K-Rock Center. Okay. So maybe you'd softened up a little bit by then.
Who
knows,
So
I started, my first interview with them went like really well. I was like, and I think I had 16 of them. So I was like,
16 different individual interviews?
Yeah, it was 16 teams. Some guys had like 25. Some guys had 30. Like I had 16. I was like, okay, it's a good amount. And my first one went so well with Florida that I went back and I was like, this is going to be easy. Like I was so nervous for it. Like this is going to be an easy process. And sure enough, I got grilled for the rest of the afternoon by most teams. But I felt really good about that one. So fast forward, I think, a couple months to the draft, I have a meeting with Florida. What was it? I guess it was the afternoon before the draft, the Friday draft. And we sat in that office for like an hour, like really just shooting the shit. Like it was
just talking hockey, talking life.
Yeah. And it was like, it was a board. Their whole scouting staff is there. There's probably 20 people in the room, and it's me and Dale Talon talking across the hallway from each other. And I felt really good about it. So I kind of had an idea. And then right before, while I'm in my suit standing in the lobby about to go to the draft, my agent Mark guy at the time came up to me. He's like, hey, so I know where you're going. Do you want to know now, or do you want to like wait? And it clicked with me. I was like, I know where I'm going, but like, don't tell me, kind of idea. So that's how my night went.
A couple of years in Florida, what, 5?
5 years, yeah.
And then you end up getting traded for another mitts-off guy. We had Jared McCann, 1-for-1, I believe.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple picks in that, I think, too.
Yeah, so how does that work? There's a couple of things I want to go through here, because that was your first trade. Was that unexpected?
Yeah, actually, I was in Africa. I didn't find out till 2 days after.
I forgot you went to Africa. Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So you're in Africa when you got traded?
Yeah, I was in Chobe National Park on a houseboat, like no service.
And they're like, hey.
Yeah, so we did like a transfer from, I couldn't even tell you on a map. Like, I could show you where Chobe National Park was, but like where I actually was, I have no idea. I just know that we were getting in a car and ending up in Zimbabwe and going to see Victoria Falls. So I get to the hotel and I'm with my buddy, and my phone just starts blowing up. And he looked at me first. He's like, dude, you got traded. I'm like, no, I didn't.
Shut up.
Get out of here. And sure enough, I look at my phone and it's like, Jim Benning, where are you? Trevor Linden. Hey. Yeah. So I called my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I'm like, hey, babe, sorry, but I got to tell you something. She goes, don't worry about it. I found out like 36 hours ago. Like, where the hell have you been? So, yeah, that's my first trade.
Oh, that's good stuff, man. Did you, oh man, that's unreal. Full Africa trip, then you're gone. Did you feel like, I don't know, slighted by that? Did you feel like they, I don't know, gave up on you, or it's just part of the, now you understand, I guess, all these years later that it's a business, right? Like they're making decisions, personnel based on the best of the team. But did you feel like maybe they gave up on you at that point? The only reason I asked that is because Jared McCann was in the chair beside me, and he said that exact thing, that he thought Vancouver gave up on him. Yeah,
there was definitely that. I mean, I'm way younger at the time. Like I'm 24, like, you know, a lot dumber than I am now to a certain extent. But yeah, at the time I was pretty pissed. Like they had at the time, I think they had removed Dale Talon from his position, and it was a different GM who had traded me.
That's never good. Eh?
Yeah, it was like it was a weird process how that all went down. So yeah, I was a little bit slighted, or felt that way. But you know, then you get on the phone call with, you know, Jim Benning and Trevor Linden, and you chat with them, and they're like, "Hey man, we came to get you." It's like, okay, perfect, I'll be there. Like I'm super excited about this.
That's cool, because you look at the glass half full, right? Like somebody maybe didn't want you, but then someone is really, really excited to get you.
And that happens. Like oftentimes that happens. Your first trade. If we keep going down my list, maybe that changes a little bit.
Well, talk to me about like an NHL trade. I think that'd be something cool for like the viewer or the listener. Like it's happened a couple times now for you. Is it a call from the GM? Do you talk to the coach, agent? Like it might be different situationally, but can you walk me through the business of an NHL trade?
Yeah, it depends. It really does. And I think I've been, you know, to a certain extent, we're all numbers. You know, you're moving a lot of money oftentimes. Creating cap space, closing cap space, whatever it may be. So I think I've been on both ends of that. But yeah, it's the trade deadline for like a number of years. Like I'd have sweaty palms all week long for sure. Like once it happens, it definitely uproots you. And the teams do a great job to like bring you in and get you set up and whatnot. It's, you know, pretty easy process, but it is kind of wild, like getting that phone call, like you see your agent pop up on your phone, or you see the GM who, you know, isn't on your caller ID every day, you know, calling you. You're like, oh, something's going down here. Like, where am I headed? Like, it is what it is. So, yeah, it's a pretty wild process.
How is that though? And like, I know you got a couple kids now, you're married, having to go from place to place. I just think the fan doesn't really understand some of the time that these guys have very complex lives, and there's a lot that goes into it more than just seeing a guy trade teams, trade jerseys. He's packing up and uprooting his entire life. Pretty much. The trickiest one that I had was getting traded from Ottawa to Nashville, because that was at the height of COVID. That was like nobody in the buildings. Like you're waiting outside to go get a coffee at Tim Hortons. That, you know, lineups outside, all that stuff. And my son was 6 days old and my wife had been through 36 hours in labor, like emergency C-section. So 6 days later, I get traded to the U.S. This is like borders fully shut down, closed. They actually sent me a private jet. They traded me. The Preds did?
Yeah, they traded me for a ham sandwich, pretty much. so like. They sent me a PJ to get me across the border so I didn't have to wait for that long and do a 2-week quarantine.
Class.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it really was.
Just you on the jet?
Yeah, just me and the pilot. It was
some Sudokus or what?
Yeah, pretty much. I kind of just like looked out the windows. Like, this is kind of neat. Yeah, it was really cool. But at that time, like we didn't have a passport for my son. His birth certificate wasn't even in yet. So that was a tough one, because obviously it's my first kid. He's 6 days old. I ended up leaving when he was 10 days old, and I didn't see him again until he was like 5.5 weeks. So that was difficult going down there and you know, being away from the family. And I knew my wife had been through a lot through that pregnancy too. So that was certainly an easy one. The other ones, like without kids, it's kind of just like you're just relocating to a different rink. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's part of it, because you do it at the start of every season, right? Like, pack up your stuff from your summer house and you move to your playing city, and you're kind of used to that process to a certain extent. And it's way harder on the significant others than it is for the player. Like I pack a duffel bag, I go, they give me my new gear,
couple suits.
A couple suits. I'm at practice the next day. Like, it's not that bad. Like, she's got to take care of the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, I especially with me moving around as much as I have, like, my wife has the large majority of props should be given to her for that.
And I know it was COVID year, but was that cool for you getting to go back home to Ottawa?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's the craziest thing is I'm from Ottawa and nobody I grew up with ever saw me play there.
Like, you're always out, different cities. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, we were completely locked down in Ottawa. That was the year we started. I think it was January 15th or whatever. So, like, I was like, and this is when we really didn't know what COVID was, what was going on. So, like, I'm talking to my folks like 15 feet away on my doorstep out front of the house. You know what I mean? Like,
yelling. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, for everybody, that was a strange year.
How did you feel playing in front of no fans, empty buildings?
Hated it.
So it must have been the worst thing.
It was the worst. Like, never want to go back to that.
Could you feel less like energy and emotion
100%.
in the building? Like,
100%.
I just like, I remember watching a couple games and you could hear guys chirping each other, and like, there just wasn't as much animosity, I thought, but.
Yeah, no. And everything was condensed and you were constantly going and like staying, a week in a hotel room, not supposed to hang out with your buddies and stuff. It was a strange year. And like, the other side of this is like, we didn't have the fans. Like, the NHL is not really the NHL. Like, we figured that out. The fans are the best in this league. Like, it's so much fun going into some of these buildings and like being the foe that comes in to ruin their night kind of idea. And then on the flip side, when you win a game at home, getting your home fans fired up, like just fans in general, they're the best in our league. I really mean that.
Well, you played in front of some good ones. Outside of Columbus, we've already talked about Florida. Name the other 5.
All right. Well, we got Vancouver, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Where do I go after that? Anaheim.
What? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we just talked about Ottawa,
Nashville, Calgary, then Columbus.
There you go, man. You've played for some good ones. They're awesome in Pitt.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything like Van, Florida, awesome. Pitt is incredible.
Yep.
You got any Sid stories for me? I always ask about Sid.
I
always ask about Sid, man.
I
don't want to put you on the spot, or maybe just even your experience with him, man.
Yeah, no. You know what? He was fantastic. Like, and I knew nothing about him beforehand. Like, just playing against him, never spoken with him, nothing. He was an absolute class act. Like, I think my first game I played with them was in Columbus, and we flew back. And like on the 20-minute flight back to Pittsburgh from Columbus, he like went back and grabbed me a beer, and then went and grabbed me another one. He's like, "You're not driving, right?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "I just want to get to know you," kind of idea. I was like, "Man, that like really you?" Like, I know that sounds like you're kind of geeking out, but like, he was Sid, man. Like, you grew up watching him.
He's larger than life, man.
Yeah, and he just took the time and listened, and like he's an impressive person.
That's the thing I've heard, is that he treats everybody with just such good dignity and respect. Damn, that's cool. You said you like take pride in working hard. You're being humble about it. One of the hardest workers in the summer that I've seen, man. Guy who puts the work in, the time, the effort. I loved working out at St. Mike's there in Toronto with you. Yeah. That was great summers,
loved it.
Shout out Matt Nickel and the BioSteel boys that we were there with. We had some great summers. I still, to the day, I'm forever entwined with you, intermittent fasting. I remember you showed up one summer and we had just finished a workout, and I just remember looking over and you were just ripped, dude. I'm like, Guddy, what's going on here? You're like, intermittent fasting. No, nothing before whatever it was, 11 or noon. You're like, workout on an empty stomach, black coffee only.
Yeah.
And I started doing it, and bro, I was fit. I was jacked.
Yeah.
And like still to the day, I like
and I learned that at Maddie's gym.
Who taught you that?
I don't remember the guy's name, but he talked about doing a fast for like 2 years, and I'm like, let's start with the intermittent.
Yeah.
Like,
day at a time.
Yeah.
Do you still do that in the summer or during the year? Do you adjust that nutrition?
Not necessarily. Like, I kind of give the body what the body needs.
Yeah. You just listen to it, eh?
Yeah. You need to sleep? Like, go to bed. It is what it is.
Veteran.
Yeah. No, someone had spoken to me about it, and like the reason behind it, like, you know, kind of a light went off. I'm like, I'll try it. Like I use myself as a test dummy too. Like, oh, you found out somehow through this guy that this works. Like, let me try it. I'll see if I can feel it. Like, I thoroughly enjoy the working outside of hockey. I really do. Like, to the point where, like, and I'm sure you do too. Like, it's fascinating being around Matt Nickel and Mikey Carnero.
One of the most interesting people I've ever met.
It's fascinating what that guy and the knowledge you can learn from him. And it's kind of turned my brain on to, like, maybe that's a post-hockey thing I do. Therefore, like, if there's something interesting, why wouldn't I try it just to see if it has an effect on me and see if, you know, feel if it works.
Well, that was what was so cool about Matty, was he was so open to everything, right? Whether it was like boxing, swimming, gymnastics. Heck, we did, remember Eldoa? Did you?
Oh, yeah.
The Eldoa,
I still do it.
I was just going to ask if you're still doing
100%.
it. Can you explain to the viewer, the listener, what Eldoa is?
Oh, man. Well, first and foremost, it's so hard.
Oh, it was
like, to get it right. Like, you feel like you fail at it every single time.
Well, it takes a lot of like mindfulness too, I feel.
But that's like zoning in. That's like true focus. So essentially what you're doing is through your breath and through your extremities, you're putting yourself, creating strength in different directions to isolate certain parts of your spine. At least that's what I gathered from it.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Seems fair, right?
Yeah.
And you wrap yourself in a pretzel and try and breathe through it and hold on to it and be strong.
For like minutes at a time.
Minutes at a time. And like, it is incredibly difficult. Like, I always use the analogy, like, remember when you were a young kid and you went out with your buddies and you were in a pool with your buddies for a little bit and you got out and you like immediately crashed? Like, that nap, like, that's the same nap that I get after doing 3 minutes of Eldoa.
I mean, I remember the first time I did it with, I forget her name now, but
Eden.
At Maddie's, I could barely drive home. I was so tired, like just like, oh my God, I felt like I had the wind knocked out of me. But that is what I thought was so cool. And you have all these guys, these all-star hockey players in the summer, and everyone's just kind of buying into all these different training regiments. You spent any time in the American League?
2 games. Got a conditioning stint in San Antonio.
How'd that go? The rampage.
Yeah, it was great. Minus my first shift. It was pink.
Talk to me about it.
Yeah, pink in the rink in San Antonio. So the ice was, I mean, you can go find a pond in the middle of July that's probably the same somewhere in Ontario. But I stepped on the ice, just came back from 8 months after having my rotator cuff fixed. So it was a little bit tentative, and I went back, checked my shoulder, looked for a puck, and toe picked right neck first into the boards.
That's tough.
Yeah. So that's how my American Hockey League career started.
Oh, I used to hate playing there. It was about 1,000 degrees in that building.
It was hot. Couldn't believe how hot it was.
You still listen to music? You're a big music guy in the summer when I talked to you. I remember you walked in one day, you had the nice glorious Suns hat on.
Yep.
Where did this come from? Just always been in your blood?
Yeah, it came from my mom. I mean, my mom threw on a Led Zeppelin album back in the day, and just baby.
Zeppelin 4,
like the good stuff.
The
good stuff. So it came straight from my mom, and I've just always loved music. I've always correlated it with hockey.
In what way?
I think of like a Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em. You know what I mean? There's a song in the background.
Yeah, you're playing to a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Still a Bauer 4500 guy, eh?
Yep.
I had to beg. This is such a niche thing too, I feel like, for the hockey fan. The 4500 is like the square looking, straight back, probably the least amount of protection in hockey too.
Actually, I don't think that's the case.
It's the most, or
it's
what?
not the most, but it's not the worst by any
I had
stretch.
to beg my equipment manager in Edmonton to let me use it because I don't think they even make them anymore.
Yeah.
You still got it on.
Yeah, funny story about that. I was in Calgary and we lost in Vancouver, like one of the very few games. We had a bad night and I was just rattled like full lunatic and came and wired my helmet across the room. And we get on the plane afterwards, still like pretty bitter about the loss. And Trevor Lewis came up to me, who wore the 4500 as well, and looked at me with such a scowl in his eye. He's like, "Bro, don't you ever do that again."
Like, the disrespect to the puck.
I'm like, "Pardon you?" He goes, "I don't care about you throwing a helmet. I care about you throwing that helmet." He goes, "They don't make those anymore." He goes, and he goes, I got 2-3 years left. If I have to wear a CCM helmet, I'm coming at you. So it's a prized possession. I'm not taking it off.
Oh, the older guys love it, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a classic looking bucket. That's amazing, Louis.
Yeah.
Don't be disrespecting the 4500.
Yeah, he was so mad at me, man.
Oh gosh, that's funny, dude. I guess it survived. Did it survive the throw?
It did. Great helmet.
Were you wearing it during the Cousins hit too?
Sure was.
See, protection.
It works.
That thing works. You signed a nice ticket with the Jackets. And I read a great article. You said something so nice that now you get to go back in the summer and you didn't have to worry about that stuff, right? Yeah. You didn't have to worry about where am I going next year and this and that. And on top of it, a little financially set. That must be nice for you, a little stability.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. Especially with a young family. Like it's great for me. It was really big for my wife and my kids, at that stage of life where, that's a huge priority. And the Blue Jackets gave me a great opportunity and I'm so fortunate to be with them. It's a great organization and we're learning a lot, in a fun way. Sometimes it's tough. We're learning the hard way too, but we are learning and it's been a great process to be a part of. Columbus is a phenomenal city. We absolutely love it there. And that has been nice. Like there was, just that kind of 10% anxiety that's just hanging around that like you don't think is really there, but it was, that's kind of gone. I've been able to settle in and you really just focus purely on hockey and skills and whatnot.
Couple young bucks, that Fantilli.
Yeah, he can play, eh?
Buddy, that move the other day where he comes up through the neutral zone, through the legs, then goes back to, that's exactly what you're talking about. It happens so fast. The kids are so good. Eh?
They're so good.
It's a joke.
Good.
Like,
I know.
They come in at whatever it is, 18, 19, 20, and they are ready to go. They were talking no American League time. They're just good to go, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the skill in this league nowadays is just, it's crazy.
The cannon in CBJ, man. I will never forget sitting down at Nationwide Arena and getting scored on and literally jumping out of my seat because for those of you who don't know that are listening and watching, there's a cannon that goes off after the Jackets score and it is the loudest thing. It's like some just hit the building.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Yeah. It's staggeringly loud. Like the first time you hear it, you think the Jumbotron's coming down.
Isn't there a good clip of maybe Johnny on the bench?
It makes me giggle every single time. It wasn't even him on the bench. It was when he was with Calgary and he gets on the ice and he's one of the first guys and visiting team came on before and he's doing a couple hot laps, feeling good, checking his gloves and it goes off and he like completely panics for a second. It's one of my favorite clips.
Great building, Nationwide.
Awesome
Great fans,
building.
Loud.
Amazing fans.
I always loved going to play there, except you guys had, you weren't there when they had them. I'm saying you guys, but Dalton Prout and Jared Bohl were there. And I just knew every night it was like, if I start running around, it's one of these two mutants.
Yeah.
And I hated fighting both of them because they're both animals.
Mm-hmm.
You've had some doozies back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Haley was one I watched just recently, an absolute marathon.
Yeah.
The Getsy one was memorable too. They were cheering every time Getz hit you, booing you every time.
Yeah.
Any memorable ones for you over your career? You've had some good ones, man.
I've had a few good ones. Yeah.
Any good stories or memories from scraps over the years that you can think of, or maybe like a favorite one, anything like that?
A bunch of years ago, I think it was like my second or third year, saw Scott Upshaw get like flip ass over tea kettle. And I had no idea who did it. So I just skated up, slashed the guy, grabbed them and whatever, and found out very quickly that Matt Karkner was throwing his fridge hands at my head.
Lefties?
I think he got both.
Whatever way it was.
Like, he turned around and put his paws on me and I went, oh, this is different.
I know the feeling.
Yeah,
I know the feeling.
I went, whoops, this is the wrong guy. Actually, my first one was... My first fight was kind of fun. I came in the league and I was like, first of all, my first D partner is Ed Jovanovski, who I loved as a kid.
Legend.
Yeah, I loved him. And like he took me under his wing and was just awesome to me, his family as well. Like Absolutely love that guy. And I was like, okay, first guy that touches him, I don't know too many guys in this league, but first guy touches him, like, I got to fight him just to let him know. Like, I'm not going to tell him this, but I got to fight him. So it turned out it was Steve Downey, which worked out well for me because he's shorter than me. I used my arms and tried to end it a little earlier than I should have, and it didn't work. He clipped me a few times. But we were playing a home and home with Tampa. So that night we get on the plane afterwards. We go to Tampa. I step on the ice in Tampa the following night, and like just a bear paw in the back of me. And it's Ryan Malone. Hey kid, let's go. And like I'm 15, 20 pounds lighter then than I am now.
He was a big boy too.
He's a big boy, big strong man. And I was like, this is the first time I'm fighting like a man. And it didn't go well for me, but I just remember that like tit for tat thing that was going on.
Hey, you showed up.
Yeah. I didn't really have a choice. Like I wasn't getting away from it.
There were some big boys. You said different. That's the word I think of. I remember first Battle of Alberta. I asked Brian McGrattan to go center ice, my first Battle of Alberta hockey night in Canada. And when he grabbed onto me, I went, this is different.
Yeah.
Like it was a man with bare hands that was moving me around in every direction that he wanted to go. And I just remember thinking, just breathe, big fella. Just breathe. Eldoa through this one.
Yeah. And that's all you can do with those guys. Like some of those guys were, what was the guy, the one guy, Steve McIntyre?
Oh yeah. He was in Edmonton before me. Thankfully, I never had to scrap him, but there was a class of human beings. Yeah.
God.
Like a level above everyone, hey?
Yeah, like, and I've said this, like, obviously first time a podcast, but I've said this for years now to family and friends. Like, they call heavyweights now heavyweights in the NHL. Like, currently, I laugh at it too. I really do mean that. Like, some of the guys I played with my first few years, like, no chance now that I'm older, 31, put on some weight and stuff, but like, those guys were heavyweights. Like that's a whole different animal that we're talking about.
And no disrespect to like the instance that I can think of is Brady Tkachuk. And I love Brady. We had him on the pod, but it was Tkachuk Trouba last year. They were like a heavyweight tilt. Yeah. I started laughing. I was like,
and there's some really tough dudes in the NHL right now, no doubt about it.
Still
and some guys
credit,
who can handle themselves and hurt you if you're not paying attention. But you know, some of those, like Chris Barch, he was a guy that I had growing up, and like this guy looked at me and he was like, dude,
both hands too. He threw both ways.
Both hands.
Nealer, I had to fight Nealer twice. Chris Neal, Ottawa guy for you. In Ottawa, I fought him with Jersey and with Edmonton. Same thing, like both hands. Yeah. And guys that, I'll put it this way, guys that if you don't really know what you're doing or you making a mistake, they're going to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like Barchi would sit there and he'd be like, just watch. I'm going to get beat up every fight this year. He's like, but the guy who beats me up isn't going to say I beat him up. I'm like, why is that? He's like, because I'm setting one up. He's like, I'm going to clip him once and he's going to know that I can drop him. I was like, dude,
these guys are psychos.
Like, who is this guy?
Hey, game's changed, huh?
Oh, yeah. What?
I don't miss this, man. I don't miss it. You know what? People ask me, guys. It's like, people are like, do you miss hockey? And I miss everything up until the point where I had to put my skates on and get out there.
Yeah.
I don't miss the fighting part. It was just, it got so mentally challenging after a while.
Yeah, I can see that.
But coming in the morning, shooting the breeze with the guys and having the young guys on the team and stuff to keep it light and playing cards on the plane, shit like that.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. So much fun.
Feeling,
but you know what? You should, also you played a hard career. Like you didn't make your money, make your living the easy way by any stretch of the imagination. And like, you put yourself in harm's way to create that living for yourself and create that respect level for yourself. And that's, I always think that you should take a lot of pride in that and never like, maybe you don't want to do it now. I understand that, but like you should take a lot of fucking pride in that. You should always carry that with you. Like, hey, I stood up for myself. I stood up for my boys. Like, it's a good thing to do.
I appreciate that, man. Damn. Trying to have some more self-confidence in retirement, and it's always nice to hear from former guys. So if that isn't a good place to end, I don't know what is. Again, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.